If you're looking for your next big adventure, look no further than the ninth house. The ninth house is the house of travel, exploration, and expanding your horizons through new experiences. It's also the place of higher meaning, wisdom, religion, and purpose. And planets in your ninth house provide important information, not just about your ability to travel and move about the world, but also about your beliefs that frame and shape your entire perception of reality. In this video, we'll cover everything you need to know to understand your ninth house, and especially for those of you who have planets in your ninth house, because we're going to be doing a planet by planet breakdown of what this energy means for you personally. But before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an important astrology update. I upload a new tutorial or forecast almost every single Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, and so you don't want to miss that. And also make sure you hit that notification bell. They've changed the algorithms and they've changed the way the subscription feed works, and this has actually hurt my view count quite a bit because a lot of you can't find my videos. And so if you hit the notification bell, you will make sure that you are actually getting notified and informed when a new video is posted. Also, if you're watching this, or I should say listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast platform, make sure you leave us a comment and a 5-star review. That helps us more than you can know. And finally, if you want to make the most out of this content, this free video that I'm providing for you here today, make sure you also download your free Astrology 101 quick reference guide at the link in the description below. This is going to help you understand what your ninth house looks like, what sign you have there, what planets are located in the ninth house, and you'll start to understand how to piece it together and interpret meaning from your birth chart, not just for the ninth house, but for all of your planetary placements. This is crucial to understanding what the heck we're talking about here today, so if you don't already have a good handle on your birth chart, you're going to get a step-by-step breakdown in this guide. So let's start with the first thing first. In order to truly understand how planets operate when they're in your ninth house, you first need to get a really solid, deep understanding of what the ninth house represents. In astrology, the planets are always the actions. They are the things that are happening. The signs are how that energy is being expressed, and the houses are the context in which they are being expressed. They are different topics and themes and experiences in your life that you have in relationship to you and your physical self, your physical body, which is the first house. And the ninth house is the house of wisdom, higher belief systems. It's the house of religion. It's the house of what you value in terms of your philosophical and moral and ethical value systems, and it's the house of travel and adventure and wisdom that you gain through experience. In traditional Hellenistic astrology, the ninth house is known as the house of God. It has an association with a higher purpose, a higher meaning, and your connection with your higher self, your connection with God, your connection with something bigger than yourself. The sun has its joy in this house. The sun represents in astrology the soul's expression of higher purpose, the soul's expression of purpose in our physical reality. It's what you came here to do very actively in this world. It's your connection to a higher consciousness. And so it makes sense that the ninth house will be connected to the house of God, the house of higher wisdom, the house of your philosophical, moral, religious, and spiritual belief systems, because this is what connects you to something bigger and better. And so that sun energy imbues some of its significations onto the ninth house through its expression of planetary joy there, which again is a traditional Hellenistic technique where different planets do best in certain houses because those houses are supportive of the energy of those planets. And in this case, the most supportive energy for your sun is the ninth house. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into the energy of the sun in the ninth house more fully. The ninth house is also traditionally a benefic or good house because it makes a Ptolemaic aspect to the ascendant. It makes actually a trine to the ascendant, a sign-based trine. And this means that it is a life-promoting house. It sees the ascendant, it imbues the ascendant with good energy. And so planets placed here are considered to be more favorable, they're elevated, they become more beneficial. The ninth house is also a cadent house, which means that it's more internalized and less externalized. It's more associated with dissemination, releasing, letting go, sharing, as opposed to building something up or creating something new. It is less physical and material, and it's more about your mental and spiritual development. When it comes to your mind and your thought process, processes. The ninth house represents your higher mind, your higher self, your higher wisdom. It also represents higher forms of knowledge and education. And this higher wisdom can come through connecting with teachers that are super wise, that have been there, done that, and had these really powerful experiences that they can use to guide you on your own path. This can come through literally higher educational institutions like colleges and graduate programs. The ninth house is associated with higher level learning and big picture thinking. And so it's not just formal education in college, it's education and development when it comes to your philosophical belief systems, your value systems, your morals and ethics that frame your reality and shape the way that you see and move through the world. This isn't just where you philosophize things. This is where you actually take action on it. This is where you embody your belief systems through your integrity. This is also where you develop your belief systems through your life experiences, especially those bigger, broader life experiences, those adventures, those connections with other cultures, other ideas, other things that you wouldn't necessarily have access to if you just stayed at home and didn't explore the world in some way. And that exploration doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be through having an adventure very literally by taking a plane and traveling across the world. It can be through connecting with other cultures and other belief systems through education, through the internet, and connecting with people who are very literally in other places around the world, through reading books, through anything that's going to connect you with different types of perspectives that are gained through different experiences and different circumstances. And a lot of that comes from people who are just completely in different places in the world where life is just different. And so they don't view the world the same. It helps you to not view the world the same. It helps you to expand your horizons and realize that what you see right here and now is not all that there is. The ninth house is traditionally the house of God, and it's the house of religion and clergy and religious institutions. And so this could be formal religious institutions, and it can show whether or not you have a good relationship with religion, or if you have a little bit of a dicier relationship with religion based on your upbringing and your experiences. It can show whether you have a strong belief in God or something higher or something bigger and beyond us, or whether maybe you're more prone to cynicism or atheism or having a more restricted worldview. All of these things can be shown by the planets that are placed in the ninth house. And it's not just formal religion. It's really how you interpret reality and how you assign meaning to experience. And that could be through just your own personal philosophy. That could be through your own form of spirituality. That could be through non-denominational religious experiences and institutions. That could be through your own personal religious study that takes you on different pathways that are unconventional. It really represents all of it, the whole spectrum of belief systems that we have here in our human experience. And as I mentioned before, the ninth house can connect you with teachers, and this could be religious teachers, this could be spiritual teachers, this could be people that show you the way because they have that deeper knowledge. And because the ninth house is higher education, higher knowledge, and bigger picture information, it's also been associated with publishing. So when you write a book in the third house, you publish it in the ninth. And speaking of religion and publishing, the ninth house is also connected to all religious publications, religious writings, including the Bible. And because we know that the ninth house is associated with both travel and, again, religion, spirituality, a higher meaning, it's also connected to spiritual pilgrimage or religious pilgrimage. So taking a journey for a spiritual or religious purpose. Beyond traditional religion and religious experiences, the ninth house represents many different mystical and metaphysical concepts and ideals. It represents divination. It represents oracles and prophecy. It represents prophetic dreams and dream interpretation in traditional astrology. It also is the most connected to astrology and astrologers as both learned individuals and also as these people who are able to interpret celestial knowledge into that human experience, to disseminate knowledge, to disseminate wisdom. And astrology, in a lot of ways, is a form of divination, especially certain forms of astrology. The ninth house is also associated with the sky. It's associated with space travel, the stars, and astronomy. And back in the day, astronomy and astrology were essentially one and the same. What it boils down to is that the ninth house is connected to the greater order of reality and the way that we interpret that through various means. Moving beyond higher wisdom, higher knowledge, religion, and travel, the ninth house is also associated with higher law and higher court systems, especially the Supreme Court, especially jury trials. Anytime when it's like the state versus so-and-so, the ninth house is probably involved versus, lawsuits and one-to-one legal transactions, which are very much a seventh house thing. So that is the energy of the ninth house in a nutshell. Before we dive into all of the different planets and what they mean for you personally in the ninth house, I just want to mention, for those of you who are absolutely fascinated with this topic, who are fascinated about astrology and cannot get enough, I have some very exciting news. At the time of this video recording, we have just celebrated our 5-year anniversary in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology, which is my full astrology program that takes you from struggling to piece together all of the scattered astrology information in an integrated way to give a reading, to giving meaningful, accurate astrology readings and making predictions with confidence, and even building your own astrology business if that's something that you want to do, completely optional. And to celebrate this milestone, we are bringing back something that a lot of you have been asking about. We are doing our first live cohort for level 1 in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology in 4 years. And enrollment for this live cohort opens on April 30th of 2026. So if you're watching this later on down the line, you can still join us in the Academy. The self-paced program has plenty of support, live support every single month. You get a live study group session for each level in the course. You get 2 monthly live Q&A calls. But if you join us for this live cohort, you're going to be getting a little bit extra, and you're going to be getting a massive discount. You'll be moving through the entire first level, which is our level that teaches you to give meaningful, accurate astrology readings, high level attuned astrology readings very confidently. And you're going to be moving through it over the course of 4 months with me and my teaching assistants and a group of like-minded astrology lovers, where we're going to take you through step-by-step everything you need to know and provide extra study group sessions where you're going to practice and get feedback on your interpretations in real time on real calls. You're going to get extra Q&A calls with me, which I don't normally offer. You're also going to be getting lifetime access to the student community where you can ask questions, get answers. Even when you're feeling stuck later on in the line, if you're a professional astrologer, you can always come back to the community and get unstuck because we are there to support you. And so you can join the waitlist to be the first to be notified when enrollment opens for this live cohort down at the link in the description below. Enrollment begins again on April 30th, and classes begin March 11th of 2026. If you're watching this later on down the line, not to worry, you can always join us in the Academy. That link will be down in the description below as well. Now let's begin our journey through the planets of the ninth house with the sun. As I mentioned earlier in this video, the sun has its joy in the ninth house. That means it's able to express itself optimally in this place of higher meaning and higher purpose, because the sun does represent the soul's expression of purpose in physical reality. It's our connection to our higher selves, our higher consciousness. It's the connection that we have to something bigger than us that informs what it is that we came here to do and how we came here to do it. It's literally how we physically and actively express our core nature. And this is very aligned with the energy of the ninth house, which, as you know from the start of this video, has to do with higher wisdom and that higher connection. That connection is something bigger. People who have the sun in the ninth house feel a very strong connection to a higher purpose, a higher reality. They feel a very strong connection to a higher consciousness. They are definitely very wise, usually wise beyond their years, and they spend their entire lives seeking adventure, experience, new information, new insights, and higher wisdom through connecting with ideas and ideals that are very different from what they're used to in the past. Some people who have ninth house sun energy can be very religious, but often they're very spiritual or just very connected to something bigger. They're often lifelong students, and one of the things that help them feel successful and lit up and excited about life is constantly learning new things, not just through travel travel, not just through adventure, but through study, through philosophical study, through college study, through just learning different things all of the time. They're always thirsty for more information. And so that is a big ninth house sun theme. Because the ninth house is connected with prophecy, with divination, with astrology, a lot of people who have ninth house energy can be interested in these types of things. They might naturally have prophetic dreams or just insights into the bigger picture of what's going on that other people might not have access to because they are connected more so to that higher consciousness, that higher wisdom. They are also usually very brilliant teachers. You know, the ninth house is learned people, and so it's hard to find a ninth house sun person who is completely uneducated, because even if they didn't have access to higher educational resources, they did it on their own. They usually are constantly seeking, and they're usually the wise teachers that want to share their information with the world, and they want to help guide other people, especially later on in life. Having the sun in the ninth house is also really good for your vitality and life force energy. It is a life promoting house, and it's enshrined to the ascendant. This also means that you are very much in your integrity. You hold your belief systems and value systems dear. You take your moral and ethical value systems very seriously, and you walk the walk and talk the talk. You are who you are. Like, you're not saying one thing, like preaching one thing and acting in a completely different way. You practice exactly what you preach, and integrity is a very much a key word for people who have ninth house sun energy. The moon represents our emotions, our subjective reality, our comfort zones, our inner experience, our home, and the environments that nurture us. And in the ninth house, you might feel more at home when you're abroad, when you're traveling. Something that helps you feel safe, secure, satisfied is going to be actually going to different places, to different locations. But when you travel, you probably don't like to just go to one place for a couple days and then hop around from place to place. You like to really settle in there. You like to really immerse yourself in that lifestyle and in that experience. And so long-term travel can be really nice for people who have the moon in the ninth house. Also, very literally taking your home with you. So, I have this placement, and we have a little travel trailer, and we like to do these really long distance road trips where we have this little like home base that we're dragging around with us. I think that's because of my ninth house moon, and you might have that experience as well, or that might be something that's appealing to you. The ninth house is also the place of prophecy, and the moon is very intuitive. It can indicate having prophetic dreams, visions, just a knowing. It's like a feeling or an understanding that something really big is happening, something really important is coming, and that can come very naturally to those who have the moon in the ninth house. The moon in the ninth house is also very supportive for educators and education. So if you are somebody who teaches or shares your information or provides guidance, you probably do it in a very supportive, very nurturing way. This also indicates that your connection to a higher power, a higher source, your connection to something bigger than you is very intuitive and very natural. It's more about how things feel as opposed to having a logical linear understanding or like studying different written philosophies and established forms of religion. It's more about feeling it out and having your own rituals and doing things in your own way. Mercury in the ninth house people are the educators. They are here to learn all of the things and teach all of the things. This is an excellent energy for thinking more deeply about the bigger picture, thinking more deeply about life's big questions. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What does this all mean? How does it all connect? Those are questions that ninth house Mercury people are often asking themselves. This is a brilliant energy for religious study or any type of higher learning, because you are on a quest for knowledge, and not only do you understand it on a big picture level, but you understand it on a more piecemeal, detailed, rational level as well. It's like taking this higher power, this connection to a higher vision, and translating it into something very logical, very rational, and that's easy to communicate to other people. You are a natural writer, a natural teacher, and this is an excellent energy for adventure and for learning through your experiences and connecting and talking to and communicating to people in different cultures, different teachers, people with different religious backgrounds and different belief systems. You are curious. You are naturally curious about other people's worldviews and why they came to those worldviews and what these other types of value and belief systems entail. And so you are constantly going to be seeking those things. For you, travel is a little bit more exciting if you're going from place to place and getting a lot of different insight, information, and experience as opposed to staying in one place for any length of time. And this is a really nice energy for publishing or sharing your thoughts in some sort of course or bigger picture format. That could be a really great thing to do with Mercury in the 9th house as well. And then there's Venus. Venus represents what brings us joy, what brings us pleasure. It also represents our love language and the way that we interact and interrelate with the people that we care about the most. And for you, your love language is adventure. Your love language is exploration. Your love language is wanting to dive into the bigger questions, the bigger concepts, the bigger philosophical meaning of life with your partner. You want to do things together. You want to grow and expand together through your experiences and through your even mental exploration. This is also someone who gains a lot of pleasure through travel. Travel brings you joy, connecting with other cultures and people in different cultures, people who have backgrounds that are very different from you. That's what brings you joy. This is also a great energy for having close connections with your teachers and people who are wiser than you, because you have this reciprocal relationship with those learned people, with those people who have the knowledge to give you. And you're also very good at relating knowledge back to other people. This is a great energy for teaching, especially in one-on-one scenarios. You probably feel more comfortable sharing your worldview one-on-one with someone versus, well, you probably could disseminate it with a group in this context as well. But this is a really great energy in any case for sharing information, sharing bigger concepts in a way that's relatable, in a way that's not pushy, in a way that understands that their views might not be the same as yours. And going back to travel, people who have Venus in the 9th house, they like to travel comfortably. And so you might be fine with having a big adventure and roughing it and doing things that are really wild. But at the end of the day, you want to come back to a place that's peaceful, that's serene, that's beautiful, that's comfortable. It's not just about having the experience of being out there and doing things. Part of the experience is the place that you're staying and your immediate surroundings and making sure that it's a place of beauty. And you love to travel to the most beautiful places in the world. It's more about the beauty and the scenery and the atmosphere than anything else. Mars in the 9th house is very action-oriented when it comes to the adventures you take. When you travel, you're probably doing it so you can actually physically do something. You'll find a lot of people who have this placement will go on like a hiking excursion or rafting or rock climbing or mountain climbing or they're parasailing or they're doing all sorts of physical activities. They're doing all sorts of like actual things. Like the part of the travel for them is getting out there, moving their body, engaging with life, actively doing something. And so that can be really fun for people who have Mars in the 9th house. Mars is a malefic planet, but it becomes a little less malefic in the 9th house. However, it can indicate that you are prone to having difficulties while traveling, especially arguments, disputes, disagreements, things that maybe cut your trip a little short, especially if Mars is otherwise debilitated or difficult in your chart. It can bring some of those problems. However, it's not always a bad thing. For some of you, this just indicates that you're very engaged with life and you have a lot of vitality and energy with Mars being enshrined to your ascendant. This also indicates that you learn those bigger picture concepts by doing it. You best understand what this world is all about, what this experience is all about through actively engaging with this world, actively doing things. Your belief systems come through your actual experience, your lived experience, the things that you go out there and do. When it comes to religion, a lot of people who have Mars in the 9th house take issue with certain types of religious doctrine or certain organized forms of religion due to past experiences. It can be a source of contention, a source of argument, a source of dispute. That stems from earlier experiences. But overall, this is not the worst place for Mars. As I mentioned at the start of this video, this is a benefic house, and so it lightens Mars and makes it a little less malefic and a little less hard to deal with. Jupiter in the ninth house brings blessings and benefits through travel and connections with foreign cultures. You learn a lot through connecting with people who are in different realities, different experiences, different places in the world, people who have different religious value systems, and you are definitely very philosophical. You are very wise beyond your years because you've engaged with so many different forms of doctrine, so many different forms of philosophy, so many different forms of spirituality and religion, and you integrate all of that into a broader, bigger picture worldview. Because the ninth house is your worldview, your belief systems that frame this reality, yours tend to be more Jupiterian, more expansive, more inclusive, and more optimistic. And oh my goodness, do you love to travel? Do you love to have adventures? Because those adventures always turn out to be bigger and better than you ever expected. And so many good things happen when you are engaged with that. You are definitely a lifetime student. You are always seeking broader knowledge through both study and experience. And you are probably a very wise teacher. You are somebody who understands things, bigger picture concepts very easily. And it might not be that you teach them necessarily, but even if you're not like specifically a teacher, you're probably somebody who guides through your example. This is another energy where you live in your integrity and people recognize and notice that. With Jupiter in the ninth house, you are also a person who benefits greatly through higher education and higher educational pursuits. And so that is something that's probably very exciting to you. I've seen people who have Jupiter in the ninth house who have multiple college degrees. They're always going back to get higher education and more education because it's just something that's so fun and so uplifting and so fulfilling for them. Saturn in the ninth house is another one of those placements that can be a little bit tricky. Saturn is traditionally considered a malefic planet, and it brings limitations, restrictions, hardship, and challenge. And it also brings delays. That is one of the things that Saturn is most notorious for. And when it comes to your higher education, Saturn can sometimes delay things. Saturn in the ninth house often indicates having to go back to get your higher education later in life, or having to stop it or delay it or drag it out for some reason. In either case, even if you do graduate on time, you go to college, everything kind of works out the way that it normally does at the same pace as the average person, it's still going to be way more work to get there. Higher education is going to feel like way more work. It's going to take a lot of self-discipline. And for you, you're probably going to have to put in more effort, or at least it's going to seem like you're putting in more effort when you compare yourself to your peers. Saturn in the ninth house is really good for teaching later on down the line, especially late in life. Saturn gets better with age. However, one of the things I've noticed is that although people who have Saturn in the ninth house tend to have a lot of wisdom that they very much earn, they have put in the work for this wisdom, they tend to not want to share it or teach it because it feels like a burden, it feels like a lot of work. But when they do, it's very rewarding, and they tend to be really good teachers because they have that ability to structure things in a way that's very grounded and practical and makes sense, to layer things logically. And so, you know, Saturn in the ninth house, if you have that and you're feeling like, I don't actually want to teach, that seems like too much work, it could still be something that could be very rewarding and worthwhile. Saturn in the ninth house can bring problems, delays, limitations, and restrictions with travel to foreign countries, or it can bring problems with foreign governments and regulations and rules involving foreign governments. Not always the case, but sometimes that can be the case. But it also instills a high level of self-discipline. Like, this is an energy where Saturn is in trine with your ascendant sign, and it makes it so you know the value of hard work. You know the value of delayed gratification. You're able to start something, to carry it out, to stick it through, and to really keep it going when other people might give up. So this is an excellent energy for self-discipline. This is an excellent energy for building to something. And this is you building your knowledge very gradually throughout your lifetime through a lot of very powerful direct experiences. And again, you work hard for your knowledge, and you've worked hard to really lock in your belief systems. Saturn in the ninth house can sometimes indicate growing up in a very dogmatic religious environment. And so that can be problematic for some people, and it can really turn you off from religion. I've also seen Saturn in the ninth house indicate problems with people who are highly religious, where for whatever reason, there is a conflict there. Maybe they don't like what you're doing. Maybe you're living an alternative lifestyle. Maybe the work that you're doing is considered to be demonic in some way. Maybe you're an astrologer. And maybe what you're doing doesn't mesh well with certain religious value and belief systems. That could be something that can show up with Saturn in the ninth house as well. Saturn in the ninth house does indicate that your beliefs about God, the universe, the world around you are pretty locked in, pretty rigid. They can be a little bit dogmatic. And also you take these things very seriously. You are very serious about your religious study and your religious practice. You can be very disciplined about your religious study and your religious practice. You tend to shy away from outside belief systems and value systems and lock in on the thing that has been tried and true that you've learned through practice and discipline. And so it can make you a little bit rigid. And so you want to make sure that you're expanding your mind and expanding your horizons as much as possible within the confines of what your Saturn is comfortable with. This is also a more pessimistic energy. Saturn in the ninth house people tend to have a more serious, a more critical, and a more pessimistic worldview. And so you have to work hard to maintain or gain optimism about what's going on in the world around you. These are people that see what's happening and they have a hard time getting a higher perspective on it. They have a hard time seeing the good, seeing the potential, especially when it comes to that bigger picture. And again, this is something that you can learn, but it takes time, it takes discipline. You're gonna have to do it in small chunks. People with Uranus in the ninth house tend to have very wild and unusual experiences with travel and connections to foreign cultures. They like to go to the place that nobody else has ever gone to. They like to take the really weird vacation to the country that no one's ever heard of, the town that is the least visited. Sometimes they can be very drawn to major cities and things like that as well, because that Uranus energy is very technological, it's very city oriented, but they can also really go off the beaten path and off the beaten trail. And when they do visit like cities and these sort of hubs, they want to go to the weirdest places. They're going there because there's something strange or unusual or different about that place that they want to check out. They also tend to have very unusual religious and philosophical and spiritual belief systems that are very ahead of their time and very outside of the norm. These are also people, considering that this is the ninth house of prophecy, that tend to get these very powerful downloads and flashes of insight. Information just comes to them like a jolt that tells them about what's ahead, that gives them guidance. They have a very sporadic and unusual connection to their higher self, to higher wisdom, to a higher energy and a bigger purpose, where other people don't quite understand what they're doing and where they're coming from. But they don't have to, because your connection is unique. Your way of viewing things is unique. Your worldview is very unique and very different, and that can serve a really important purpose. Neptune in the ninth house people are usually very deeply spiritual. They understand at a core level that everything is interconnected. Everything is connected to everything else in this reality and beyond. They understand the connection to interdimensional energies. They understand that everything is not what it seems. They tend to have a more mystical and metaphysical form of spiritual connection and spirituality. They tend to explore things that are very unusual, very creative, and they don't tend to adhere to a specific religious doctrine. I've seen some people with Neptune in the ninth house being very preoccupied with the afterlife and near-death experiences and things of that nature. They just find these things to be extra fascinating because it shows, again, that there's more to this reality than meets the eye, and that's definitely a big part of their worldview. They also tend to be very compassionate because they are so interconnected, and they do have this understanding that what impacts me impacts everyone and everything else in this reality. And so that instills an empathy and a compassion that other people might not have, because they really get it on this big picture level. When it comes to travel for them is often a mystical experience. It's an otherworldly experience. It's a transcendent experience. This is a really beautiful energy for going on spiritual retreats, visiting spiritual places, visiting places that have high energy, high potential, because they've been utilized for religious purposes and ritual purposes for many, many centuries, or even thousands of years. This is where you want to go to those sacred religious sites and to experience it firsthand. Pluto in the ninth house instills a very intense worldview. Things can be very black or white, it is or it isn't. This can also indicate having very intense experiences when traveling, especially when traveling abroad, experiences that really completely transform who you are and the way that you show up in the world. For you, travel is empowering. Travel is something you do because you know that you're going to come back from that experience changed. Because the ninth house is in a trine aspect to the ascendant sign, Pluto in the ninth house instills resiliency. You are somebody who can come back from anything, and the source of your resiliency is often your belief that you can come back from this. You can come back stronger as a result of this. Your belief systems, your connection to a higher power, a higher purpose, your connection to your religious ideologies and spiritual belief systems are what power you through. They are deeply restorative and deeply regenerative to you on a very physical level because your mind is powerful and your beliefs are powerful. Pluto in the ninth house instills a fascination with darker, more taboo topics and occult learnings, especially when it comes to those philosophical belief systems. You're interested in the magical, you're interested in the mystical, you're interested in the taboo, you're interested in the things that other people might demonize or cast aside or not want to look at or look into. Those are your areas of expertise. Those are your areas of fascination. Those are the things that help shape your views and your understanding of reality. You have a deeper, more core understanding of the nature of this reality than other people might because you're willing to go there. You're willing to look at the things that other people shy away from because you understand its true importance. All right, that is all of the planets in the ninth house. Let me know down in the description below if you have any of these planets in the ninth house in your birth chart, what your experience is, and also if you have something that's not a planet in the ninth house, we do have videos for you about the north and south nodes in the houses, Chiron in the houses, Ceres in the houses, and so much more. So definitely go on and search my channel for that. We also have a whole playlist of videos about planets in the houses, and so I'm going to float that up here somewhere. I hope to see some of you in the Cosmic Academy of Astrology. If not this May, then sometime in the future, because this video is relevant for a very long time, pretty much forever. And we will always be here to help teach you and support you every step of the way on your astrology journey. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.